going to do a couple examples of Newton's second law dealing with unit vector notation. So the first example, we have while two forces act on it, a particle is to move at the constant velocity 3 meters per second I hat minus 4 meters per second j hat. One of the forces is 2 newtons I hat plus negative 6 newtons j hat. What is the other force? Now this is almost a trick question. So first and foremost, you see how it says that it's going to move at a constant velocity. So what does constant velocity mean? If you said no acceleration, you're correct. Okay, so remember, constant velocity equals no acceleration, which tells us that forces are balanced. Okay, so remember, net force is equal to mass times acceleration. So that means if acceleration equals 0, then net force also equals 0. Okay, so because of that, we know that the other force has to kind of cancel out that first force because the net force has to equal 0. Therefore, that force 2 has to be a negative 2 newtons I hat plus a positive 6 newtons j hat. And that's the answer. All right. So just remember, constant velocity means no acceleration, means net force is 0. All right. Example number 4, we have 2 horizontal forces act on a 2 kilogram chopping block that can slide over a frictionless kitchen counter which lies in an XY plane. If the forces are 3 newtons I hat plus 4 newtons j hat, and then force 2 is negative 5 newtons I hat plus 4 newtons j hat, what is the acceleration of the chopping block in unit vector notation? So when you get stuff in unit vector notation like this, it's almost like they did a part of the problem for you because they're already giving you the x and y components of those 2 forces. So all we have to do now is add up the forces in the x direction, add up the forces in the y direction, because we know net force in the x direction will equal mass times acceleration in the x direction, and net force in the y direction will equal mass times acceleration in the y direction. So for the x direction, we look at the I hats. So that means 3 newtons plus a negative 5 newtons will be our net force in the x direction, because these 2 things are our x, and then these 2 things are our y, our y. So for the x direction, we get 3 newtons I hat for the first one plus a negative 5 newtons I hat for force 2 equals the mass of the chopping block, which was 2 kilograms, times acceleration in the x direction. So we get 3 minus 5, which is negative 2, equals 2 times ax, divide by 2 for both sides, and we get the acceleration in the x direction is a negative 1 meter per second squared. And then same thing for the y direction, but now we're looking at the j's. They're both positive 4, so we get positive 4 newtons plus 4 newtons equals mass, which was 2 kilograms, times acceleration in the y direction. 8 newtons equals 2 acceleration in the y direction. And then dividing by 2, we get acceleration in the y direction is equal to 4 meters per second squared. So now acceleration in the y direction will be negative 1 meters per second squared I hat plus 4 meters per second squared j hat. And that is our answer.